time for the final word in sports all across the state. You're listening to Sports Talk with your hosts, Phil Kornbluth, Will Pelagic, and the Professor Tom Hayes. You've been waiting all day, so join the show now by calling 800-956-7266.
Where's Kornbluth at? I figured he'd be the one guy with the great questions here today. Still asleep? He's trying to take that orange shirt he wears to press conferences off. That's what he's trying to do. Yeah, right. That's because he hasn't bought a new one since 1984.
Hey, pleasant good evening to you and yours, and welcome to Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. That is the voice of Frank Martin, the head coach of the South Carolina Gamecock men's basketball team, wondering where our fearless leader is. That's kind of what we're feeling right now as well. Will Pelagic.
I thought he'd been rendered silence by those comments.
Will Pelagic, Professor Tom Hayes, Phil Kornbluth in transit. We understand that the South Carolina roads are being patrolled by very many members of the Highway Patrol, and he's escaping all of them, which is a good thing, but has gone through some backup getting back from our venue yesterday where we were at Myrtle Beach. And again, thanks again to the folks at Ron John's in Conway and just short of Myrtle Beach for the great hospitality we had yesterday as we profiled the Chanticleers game this weekend against Georgia State. Big one for Jimmy Chadwell and those guys. And thanks again to the folks at Coastal for having us out there yesterday. The big story of the day is you heard Frank Martin speak. Well, it's the first time Frank Martin has spoken since Lamont Evans' allegations from the FBI involving the alleged bribery and $22,000 scheme that he allegedly put on to direct players towards business advisors and agents, part of the 10-person investigation and 10-person charged group that involves a lot of these impermissible benefits, not only going to coaches, but also to players. One thing that Frank Martin did say that was about as emphatic as anything else is the fact that this investigation does not involve the University of South Carolina. It doesn't involve him, and it doesn't involve this athletic department. It only involves Lamont Evans. And he said it so definitively that you have to take him at his word. Now, that's not to say that the investigation won't exactly involve him going forward or the university going forward, but as of right now, this is something that's a Lamont Evans issue and a Lamont Evans issue only.
Well, it's interesting. Some of the more critical Gamecock fans would tell you, look at Frank Martin's roster, and you can tell he wasn't involved. I mean, some people are just hard on trying to recruit for a team like South Carolina. But I will say this. Frank Martin knows the difficulty of recruiting a place like this. I mean, he recruited at Kansas State against Kansas,
right,
and when Missouri was going great guns. So you find the players that fit your system.
Exactly.
And sometimes they're not going to be those marquee players, but the players that fit your system. And that's what he's done so far since he's been here.
Well, a lot of what people will point to is last year's success and the two players who are no longer there,
yes,
being a big part of that success, with Thornwell and Dozier now having gone, and the fact that, we don't know who the players are involved in. And it's one thing that he also said during the press conference, they don't necessarily know any of the unnamed specifics like player 3 or University 7, and all that stuff has not been expressed to him because he basically said he's had no contact with the FBI. So he basically said that I know what you guys know and what you found out as a result of the reporting that's happened and the stuff that the FBI has released. Other than that, he is basically sitting like us almost as an observer. But it's hard to it's hard to not sit there and try to want to connect the dots and say, if either one of those players was involved, whether it be Thornwell or Dozier, whoever, there's a wonder about whether or not something will happen beyond what has happened already to Lamont Evans. I'm not saying that South Carolina is completely out of the woods, but if Frank Martin is to be believed, then the NCAA will have to take a very, very careful look at the situation and see whether or not Frank Martin is somebody who can be cleared of any wrongdoing. And we've even seen in previous situations that, ignorance is not a defense, right, unfortunately, from the NCAA. And David Cloninger of the Post and Courier was able to catch up with Jay Billis and say, regardless of what Frank Martin says, they're not out of the woods. But the one thing that we'll say of Frank Martin is that he's got an unblemished record against him when it comes to the NCAA. There's no violations that have followed him. He's run a complete bill of health and what Bill has called a model program. So in my mind, significant step forward. He was about as open and honest as he could have been. We were there for a whole hour. So, I mean, credit and kudos to him for at least standing up and facing the music. They basically broke it up, and the first half hour involved the NCAA allegations portion of it. And then the next half hour, we talked about the team that he has coming back, and a team that basically, Pro, is a clean canvas, if you will. I mean, yeah, there are some returning guys like Hassani Gravett and guys of that nature who come back and were contributors last year, Chris Silva and the like. But for the most part, they need to find some way to replace that scoring output from last year, and it's going to have to come from either people who were there last year or one of these two graduate transfers, either Frank Booker or Wesley Myers, who are coming in here and playing their first games for South Carolina. I
think the difficult thing that they're going to have to replace is the size and versatility of the backcourt they had. You know, Dwayne Notice was about 6'2", 6'2.5", and he was built like a defensive back. Mm-hmm. And even when you got around him, the other team's point guard felt like they were in a heavyweight fight for 40 minutes, and they usually wore down toward the latter part of the game. So defensively, that's going to be tough to replace, and the versatility of Dozier and Thornwell, because Thornwell, for instance, would play power forward.
He's a point
guard, off guard, in the same series of plays.
Right.
Because he could rebound, he could score, he could play defense. And even Justin Mackey, the senior who played nominal minutes, came off the bench, and he was 6'3", over 200 pounds. So those guys at the backcourt defensively is what really spurred that team in the NCAA tournament.
We will play more of Frank Martin's comments for you coming up here in just a moment at 6:20. He'll express not only his feelings about Lamont Evans and how he felt about that investigation being underway and how it affects his team. He'll also talk a little bit about the enthusiasm he has for this team and how some of that's created by what happened last year. It is Thursday, which means we talk to the coach and the QB. Steve Tannehill and Chuck Reedy will join us coming up at 6:30. We're going to hear from South Carolina running back Tyson Williams as the Gamecocks get ready for Arkansas. We'll get a little bit more clarification after 7 when Will Muschamp speaks, whether or not we will see Zach Bailey this week at right tackle. DJ Park is scheduled to start in his spot as the third-string right tackle in case Bailey is not able to go. That would be a big returning part for the Gamecocks here this week as they get ready for an Arkansas defense that is not very good, at least numbers-wise. But as we all know, Pro, the South Carolina offense is not exactly sitting and running on all cylinders.
Well, with a team like South Carolina is playing right now, Will, with the musical chairs at offensive line, as I've made the point to Phil many times, they're playing two teams.
Right.
They're playing the opposition in the different jersey, and they're playing against themselves.
Correct.
Because right now, they don't have anything they're comfortable with. You see teams down the stretch, there's a certain number of plays or style of play they like that they're comfortable with. This team right now is just trying to fit in their underwear. They don't really know how it fits right now. They're not comfortable.
Clemson's football team taking on Wake Forest this week, homecoming at Death Valley. Their injury report that they just released right before the top of the hour. Basically, anybody who is iffy for them is not going to go. They're going to be held out. DJ Greenlee, questionable going into the week. He will not play against he will not play against Wake Forest. Neither will Marcus Edmond, and also no DJ Greenlee as well from that perspective.
This is the big game of the year. Yes. All hands on deck.
Justin Foster also will not play as well. That's the third name I was looking at as well. So, yeah, those three guys will not play, despite the fact that, as we said, Dabo believed it's the biggest game of the year. 800-956-7266 is how you get in touch with us. We'll take all your phone calls. We want you to react to what Frank Barton has to say coming up, and also react on what's going on with South Carolina as well as Clemson. These two big games for both of these teams this week. Clemson needing a win to just keep the train rolling, and South Carolina trying to get the train back on the tracks. And you're not going to want to miss what Frank Martin had to say. He had some very candid comments not only about the investigation, but also about the business of college basketball as it sits right now. We're also going to talk to somebody who covers Arkansas, Richard Davenport from the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette. A whole bunch of stuff to get to today, and we will do so and continue with that coming up next on Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network.
I won't ask you this question, Will, because you're not from around here. I'll ask Pro. Name the one place in South Carolina you think you can drive without being caught in a traffic backup that costs you 15, 20 minutes. Let me answer that for you. Ainer. Of all places, Ainer. A little back road behind Ainer coming from the beach that I like to take. And today, of all days, was the day they decided to pave it and paint the lines.
Interesting.
And traffic was backed up. So I am sorry, but you guys did a great job opening up. And so Frank, I couldn't believe that. That's the first time I'd heard that. And then I looked down, and what am I wearing?
You're wearing a little burnt orange for those of you who can't see us on
little Texas orange,
SportsTalkSC.com. But hey, apparently your alleged loyalties have made it around the entire South Carolina Athletic Department.
See, now, if I was really sensitive, going back to that when Muschamp made that comment,
it goes back to him making the comment a couple of weeks ago, for those who might not have heard about your peach shirt.
Yeah, referencing what happened yesterday with Cam Newton and the young female reporter
Jordan
in
Rodriguez.
Charlotte. Yeah, so, if I was a sensitive guy, I would have said, hey, don't be attacking me thinking that I am loyal to a particular place.
With all due respect, I think that situation is different than this one.
Yeah, Cam was way out of line. Way out of line.
This is more playful.
No question. Way out of line. But then again, since we brought it up, he probably verbalized something, whether it's a woman or a man, he probably verbalized something that many players and coaches think when they're taking questions from people. Like, you're sitting here asking a question. Now, she asked a softball friendly question, nothing that was negative. But when you get down to some questions and answers between coaches, players, and the media, where you're kind of dissecting something, they're probably thinking, this guy never played football past Pee-wee. And he's sitting here asking me about our too deep coverage.
And that's the issue that I guess what he was trying to do when he was backtracking, he was trying to make it a non-gendered thing. He was trying to talk about all reporters. But the fact that he gendered it the way that he did and made it with the female situation, that's where he got himself in trouble. He might not have gotten in trouble if he would have said, it's funny hearing a reporter talk about route running. Although at the same way, we sit in a very sensitive time, he probably would have still gotten some backlash.
Well, look, I'm still one of those people who believe that women should be barefoot, pregnant, and in the kitchen. However,
that's very, very insensitive. It's very, very
and wearing and here comes from a guy with a peach shirt on.
It's very, very.
However, I have, come full circle on that. And now I think it's good that they're out having careers.
You mean you did a 180? Because if you went
full circle, you'd be back at the same place you started. Let's pivot, shall we? Frank Martin earlier today, speaking for the first time since.
I've heard full circle before when somebody has changed their position on something. Come full circle. Come a long way from where we were.
You did a complete 360.
From the caveman days. Look, I do not drag my knuckles on the ground when I'm walking
anymore.
Around.
Frank Martin shocked at the investigation that took place with Lamont Evans. Shocked at who, but not exactly what.
While I was not shocked by what was reported, I was shocked by who was a part of the report. And that broke my heart. And, I've known Lamont since he was a high school kid, gave him his break in this business, was around them as a non-recruiter, was around them as an assistant coach. And I can't tell you that those 48 hours after that news broke were good for me. And when I say they were not good for me, had nothing to do with the investigation. I don't, whatever you know about the investigation is what I know. Unless there's something there that I don't know, this university is not being investigated. Lamont Evans is being investigated. Frank Martin is not being investigated. Lamont Evans is being investigated. Our basketball program is not being investigated. Lamont is being investigated. And I got to be sent because of the sensitivity of ongoing FBI investigations, I hope you understand that there's some things that I'm not going to get into right now. When the time comes, I'll be more than happy to express whatever you want to ask me. But, you know, there's some things that if you ask questions, I'm not going to be able to go there on some things. But I can wholeheartedly tell you that we are not part in any way, shape, or form with this FBI investigation. Unfortunately, I can't say the same for Lamont. And so with that, we'll deal with the basketball questions when you guys get bored of my answers. And then my attitude will change a little bit because I really, 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 really like this basketball team. I'm as excited. I've been excited for the last 4 years. I'm just as excited as I was at any time in those 4 years right now from what I've seen from these guys.
That's Frank Martin. And, you know I have a little bit of history with Frank from his time at Kansas State. I've always admired him. We're not supposed to root in this business, but that guy's a damn treasure. I mean, if you can't trust that guy, who can you trust in this business?
Yeah, I would agree. I think the problem that all the coaches face, and not from those of us locally who happen to know the coaches, I mean, I think here in South Carolina, we all believe that Frank Martin, Brad Brownell, Cliff Ellis, Mike Young, all of them, all up and down the line of our basketball coaches in our state are straight arrows, follow the rules, don't do anything. However, in this particular case, and I have to be fair about it,
of course,
and I'm not questioning Frank. I believe Frank. But I say the same thing that I said when Pitino had his situation there at Louisville, and the other ones, even Mike Boynton at Oklahoma State,
Brad Underwood, Illinois,
yeah, out at Arizona. You know, you're a head coach, you got an assistant coach doing this. How do you not know about it? I guess it's possible that they do a great job of covering it up. It's they're doing things on the side. They're dealing with these money managers, and they're taking the money under the table, and maybe they're not telling their bosses for obvious reasons. I think truly, I think with 100% certainty, I asked the question, how do you not know about it? But then I also think with 100% certainty that in the case of Frank Martin, if he had found out about it, he would have done something about it. He would have stepped up and he would have fired Lamont, and he would have taken it to Ray Tanner and gotten that situation snipped right away had he known about it. But then again, I think it is legitimate to ask him any of these coaches, because you spend so much time with your assistant coaches. You're on the road with them. You're in the homes with them. You're in the office with them. You're on the court with them. I'm asking this as a blanket statement of all these head coaches who've had this situation with their assistants. How do you not know?
Well, I asked him specifically, how do you go about changing this? Like, does this change your evaluation process, or does this make you reevaluate the way that you bring people into your program, whether it's people in compliance, graduate assistants, assistant coaches, whatever, at whatever level you do this? And again, the one thing that he responds with saying is that, you know, it's an impossible standard to have to keep up with guys when they're not in front of you. You know, it's just like anything. It's almost like if your kid does something wrong, you know, you can't control your kid when he's outside of your house. You really can't. As much as you want to try, you can't. And, you know, I want to believe him at face value, but the questions that you're asking are very legitimate ones. Sure. And that's the problem. And that's the balance that you have to sit here and face with Frank, is the fact that he can sit here and say all of these things, but at the same time, it doesn't change the fact that this happened.
I will say, in what you said early on, I was listening coming in, his track record in college and at South Carolina is pristine.
Spotless.
When it comes to these sort of things.
Well, the one thing you got to tell a guy when you hire him is, if something seems questionable, you bring it to me and we'll decide what you do. Because some guys would do something under the table, entice your assistant. You may never know, but if you tell him, if you have a question about something, come to me.
And the other thing here too, I mean, Frank's known Lamont a long time.
Yeah,
came with him from Kansas State. It wasn't like he had just hired him a year or two, you know, before this happened.
Known him since high school.
Yeah, be right back. We are back, Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network, here on a Thursday night, all together now, after our trip down to the beach. Phil Kornblut, Will Pelagic.
I didn't get any sun.
No, neither did I.
It's kind of bad.
And the Professor Tom Hayes and Stockton Burke behind the bulletproof glass tonight. It is time to welcome in on this Thursday night for another edition of the Coach and the Quarterback. It's the coach, Chuck Reedy, and the quarterback, former USC star, Steve Tannehill. Gentlemen, good to have you with us. Chuck, let's begin with you. Listen, Dabo Swinney is the greatest coach who ever lived, period, end of statement.
Well, I think he's a very, very good football coach, but I wouldn't get too carried away here.
Come on now.
Are you talking about the fact that he is motivating this group to think that Wake Forest is the biggest game of this year?
No. My question is based on the fact that every time we think they've come upon a mountain, they climb to the mountaintop and plant their flag.
Phil, they're a very, very good football team. Maybe better than they were a year ago.
Does it hurt you? Can you not dig? Can you not say they're great? Can you not dig down?
Well, great will be. They'll be great at the end of the year. I mean, right now they're a very, very good football team. I think they're favored in every game that they play here on out until maybe the playoffs. Now they may stump their toe. They had two bumps last year where they lost one and could have lost the other. That may happen again, but certainly, they got a great opportunity to run the table. There's nobody in the other division that can beat them in the championship game, and then they're going to get into the playoffs, and they may very well be seeded number one just because of the strength of their schedule.
I temporarily ceded the title of smartest man on this show last week to Steve Tannehill because you said the smartest thing on this air last week. Forgive me for not having the direct quote, but you said something to the effect of South Carolina's offense lacks an identity, and I don't know what they do well on offense. I don't know if we have the answer to that yet, Steve, from what we saw last week. Do you?
Is that a trick question? Hey, the comment on when y'all were talking to Coach Reedy, John McKissick's the greatest coach ever in the state of South Carolina. Let's end all that. Okay. I mean, that's the easy one. Obviously, he's a high school coach, but still, Coach McKissick is, Coach McKissick.
Yeah.
South Carolina's offense is Jake making plays, and that's it. I said it last week, and you take away Debo's returns in the first two games, and we're at the same place. And football, unfortunately, you can have Jerry Rice out there at wide out, and you can have Tom Brady at quarterback. If you don't have an offensive line, it's not going to happen. And right now, South Carolina is struggling. Two of their best offensive linemen are hurt. And it showed last week. They went 9 plays and 5 sacks in those 9 plays. You're not going to, and that was late in the game. You're not going to win any football games. Clemson has a very good offensive line and a quarterback that can move, but Clemson is so good because of their defensive line. And they're winning games on defense because it sets the tone. So, South Carolina has Coach Muschamp's second year. We got to give him some time, and it's not his fault. But the offense, I say the same thing I said last week. What are they trying to do? I'm just a fan, but I don't know.
Well, Steve, they get Arkansas Saturday. I think they'll beat Arkansas. That's my pick. I'm taking the Gamecocks. I'm taking the points. I don't think they'll need the points. I think they're going to beat Arkansas. They'll be 4-2. They beat Arkansas. They'll be 4-2. Direct flip. 6 games last year. Is that not progress? Do we not see progress, assuming they beat Arkansas?
Oh, no question about it. And I'll tell you this. I think the kids, and I tweeted it out after the game, I think they play with great effort. And that's the first thing, one of the first things, and Coach Reedy, you know this, is to turn that page when you get there as a new coach. And you might not have the best talent in the world, but you want the kids to play hard play the whole game. I think Carolina does that. I really believe that they play hard. I just don't think they're talented in enough spots where they need to be to play in the SEC right now. I like their recruiting. I like what Muschamp's doing, but they're just not quite talented. And then you lose Bryson Allen Williams on defense and two good offensive linemen and Debo. So he's kind of getting Coach Muschamp's kind of getting a pass because he's got some guys hurt. But I really like that the guys play hard, and I think they're in. You know what I mean? And a lot of people probably don't know what that means, but having that group that's in and believes means a lot.
You know, Coach Muschamp always asks, no excuses, next man up. Chuck, how difficult is it? And what would you do, say, like in the game Saturday, you have to shuffle your offensive line where you got one guy playing the position he's played when he started at center and Allen not. How many in-game adjustments or what kind of adjustments can you make when you're playing with a jerry-rigged offensive line?
Yeah, well, there's not a whole lot you can do when you get in that situation, in the middle of a ball game. I mean, you got to play with what you got. I mean, and like you said, I mean, whoever the next guy's got to go in and play. That's obviously they don't have the depth like Steve's saying. I mean, they haven't recruited to a level where they've got depth where they can send another guy in that can play at a high level. But that's a part of the game. The thing, and just kind of follow up a little bit with the questions to Steve. The thing that I don't understand, if you're a spread one back team, there's not many spread one back teams in the country that can run the football that doesn't have a quarterback that can run. And so I don't know that what they're doing, gives them a very good chance to run the football. If you're going to play in the spread with a one back, without a quarterback that can run, it's very, very difficult. I mean, Clemson spreads it out, but they got a quarterback that can run. And matter of fact, he's the best runner they've got right now. Alabama, they got a guy that can run. If you're not going to run your quarterback, if he's not a runner, then you better have another way to run the football, have another way to get a lead blocker where you can run a toss sweep, or you can run some counters, do some things where, you got a lead blocker. And, I watch it, and it's so frustrating just to see, that they don't have a better plan to run the football.
Well, let me ask you this. You were a long-time play caller, and of course, the offense you guys ran, I don't think sacks were a big issue when you had, Rodney and Homer and all those guys you had back there, quarterback. And as Steve pointed out, all the sacks piled up. So as a play caller, what can you do to offset that pressure and get your team out of that sacking situation that the Gamecock offense got into?
Well, you've got to be able to run the football. And if you can't, then they're just going to tee off. I mean, yeah, you can run draws, you can run screens, but you can only do that so much. You've got to be able to get 4 yards on first down and stay ahead of the count a little bit.
I'm right behind you. You got to get some yards on first down.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what happened. I mean, they're in long yardage situations. And Jake Bentley's a very good quarterback, and but he's still hasn't played but a year of football. I mean, he's going to do nothing but get better and better. But they've got to help him. I mean, he's going to get beat to death here. As they get more further along into the season, if they don't find some way to run the football.
All right, hang on, guys. Come back to you for a couple of more minutes. Yeah, I mean, I think Jake was practically out on his feet, it looked to me.
The Denson-Turner package, when they have Denson in and moving the tight end in motion, seems like something they would have gone to.
Going back to what he was saying, though, he looked to me almost out on his feet after that
big hit, yeah.
Before the next to last
and
play.
There's a lot of criticism right now from fans about whether or not he should have been checked for a concussion.
All right, we'll be right back. we are back with you. Sports Talk South Carolina Radio Network on a Thursday night from downtown Columbia. We'll get to some of your phone calls coming up. We've just got a loaded show with so much going on between basketball practice starting, football season going. Don't y'all think basketball season starts too soon and practice starts too soon, Coach?
Well, yes, of course. But, that's we don't have any control about that. I mean, let them get started, and they still got 6 weeks before they play.
Yeah, so it seems. Hey, Sports Talk brought to you by South Carolina Electric Cooperative, your local electric cooperative, sponsor of the annual Touchstone Energy Cooperatives Bowl. To find out more about what the co-ops are doing across the state, visit ecsc.org and save the date, December 9th. For the Touchstone Energy Cooperatives Bowl in Myrtle Beach.
I feel like we've gotten into a bit of a pattern with Clemson and Dabo Swinney. He will basically promote this opponent like it's the greatest thing since sliced bread, and Clemson goes out and has no trouble. So I ask you, it seems like for the 15th consecutive week, Chuck, how good do you believe Wake Forest really is?
Well, Wake Forest is an improved football team that is a middle of the road team in the ACC. If Clemson plays, at just a high level, they'll win the game, very convincingly. And I don't want to be repetitive, but there's nobody left on Clemson's schedule, that will match up with Clemson from a talent standpoint. And, as long as they don't, stub their toe, along the way, I mean, there's, and Steve hit the nail on the head. They're so good on defense that no one is going to score a lot of points. And so, offensively, they just need to not turn it over a lot and just, get enough points to win. And, and they're going to get better and better on offense because Bryant's going to do nothing but get better. And I think I don't think anybody expected him to play as well as he played. Even the people at Clemson, that I had talked to didn't expect him to play like he's played. And the two running backs are going to do nothing but get better and better. So they're improve on offense and like defensively, they're probably, maybe them in Alabama, but certainly the two best defenses in the country.
Steve, the Gamecocks, dominated second quarter at Texas A&M. Into the third, had the lead. Into the fourth quarter, they had the lead. And then it gets away from them when the offense became stagnant. When you go back and look at that second quarter and part of the third from watching just that segment of the game, what did you see that they were doing well on offense that they just – even with that beat up line now, I mean, it was that banged up line that they were still playing at that particular time. What did they get away from, or was it something that A&M did?
I think A&M changed, no question. But Jake made some plays. That's the thing. The touchdown to Shi Smith, who I coached, who's just a freshman. That was fun. That was fun seeing that. The guy you coached. As a freshman at Carolina, score a touchdown. That was awesome to see. But Jake, the difference is that Jake was making plays, but when you get in those long down distances, you're stuck. And Texas A&M forced us into long down situations, and then they can pin their ears back. Coach Reed said earlier, I mean, if it's 3rd and 8, I mean, it's not that difficult. The team's going to have, and they can't run it, so there's no threat of the draw. Then the defensive line's pinning it back, and we're short on the offensive line. So I don't necessarily think we got conservative, but we didn't do the same things we had been doing. But again, say it was 17-7. 7 of those were Jake making a play. Mm-hmm. And again, Jake's made some great plays this year, but a lot of the big plays down the field, Jake has scrambled around, avoided some sacks, and made plays. We don't have a down-the-field offense. At the end of the game, I mean, it's 2 weeks ago against La Tech. Jake scrambles for 25 yards and then throws one up, and Brian Evers makes the catch. Mm-hmm. And we beat La Tech. we don't have a down the field offense. And I really think, and I said it last week, I think that's to protect because our offensive line is not that good. But again, the offense is struggling, and we do have good players, I think, on offense. Young players, but I do think we have good players.
All right, last thing for both of you, give you about 45 seconds each here. Clemson's got this Trevor Lawrence kid coming in. By all accounts, he's maybe the greatest quarterback of all time coming out of high school. So, Steve, I'll start with you. Between South Carolina and Clemson, you see it widening or closing in the years ahead?
Oh, Muschamp's a recruiter. It's close. It's going to close. He's going to get better players, but we got to focus on the defensive line. He's already got really good skill guys. Clemson's going to be Clemson. They're still going to get their studs, and they got studs that are red shirts. So I think it's going to close. I hope it closes. But Muschamp is a big time recruiter.
Chuck?
Well, it's going to close a little bit because it was a 50-point differential last year. I mean, it's got to get closer.
So you think the Gamecocks will play to within 50 this year?
Yeah, I do. But, Clemson, I mean, when you got Xavier Thomas, I mean, here's the number 1 or 2 guy in the country. Apparently grew up wanting to come to South Carolina. And now he's solid Clemson. It's going to be hard for Carolina to make that because Clemson's recruiting at a level that, I mean, they're recruiting guys that South Carolina really aren't even in on. I mean, so South Carolina's, they're taking guys that are a notch below the guys that Clemson is getting. And, I don't mean to disparage anybody, but that's just the facts. I mean, that's just the way it is. Now, the one thing that I think Muschamp is doing a great job of is recruiting state of South Carolina. And I think that will pay off because I think over time, the South Carolina kid, playing at the University of South Carolina does mean a lot. And I think that will help them. Clemson's they don't recruit many kids in South Carolina anymore. And, that will certainly help Carolina close the gap a little bit in that regard. The caliber of players that Clemson getting is, they're at Alabama. They're at the level Alabama is right now.
And there's no let up in sight, or so it appears.
No, and there's a daggone good chance that the two of them are going to play for the national championship again.
Yeah. You think America's bored with that?
Well, probably are, but
I know he doesn't care.
Deal with it.
I mean, it is what it is. I mean, I don't see anybody else out there.
My goal
Oklahoma, Georgia,
is just to get you eventually to admit that Jabo's the greatest coach of all time, and this is the greatest run of Clemson football history. That's my goal.
No, this is the best. This is the greatest run in Clemson history. I mean, I don't dispute that. I mean, I have tremendous respect for what they're doing and what they've done. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, we were a different era. That was 35 years ago, and what we did was, something that had never been done before and nobody ever thought could be done. And we had a great run for, 12 years, whatever, with Danny. But, the run Clemson's had the last 3 years, I mean, you can't top that.
Yeah. Thank you, Coach Chuck. Steve, before we let you go, quick shout out. Steve, Coach Tannehill. Yep. I'm giving you a chance to give a quick shout out for group therapy.
Yeah, it's Parents Weekend, man. It's ought to be a fun weekend. Home games ought to be fun.
So all the kids bring your mom and dad to group therapy, right?
Oh yeah, and they will. It's been here since 1978, so it'll be a fun weekend here at group.
At the group. Thank you, guys. Have a great week. We'll talk to you next week. Coach and quarterback with us here on Sports Talk. We'll be back.
Round 2 of Sports Talk up next with your hosts Phil Kornbluth, Will Pelagic, and the Professor Tom Hayes. Don't leave us hanging. Join the show, 800-956-7266.
We continue on a very busy Thursday night edition of Sports Talk from downtown Columbia, the capital city, in the middle of it all. Get to recruiting here coming up in just a few minutes, but let's find out more about Arkansas as we welcome in from the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette, outstanding sports writer and a man who covers recruiting himself, Richard Davenport. Richard, how you doing?
Doing good, guys.
Thank you so much for joining us. This Arkansas team coming into Columbia, they've had kind of a wild ride this year. What will South Carolina fans see from this Arkansas group?
They'll see an offensive team that, minus the TCU game, an offense that can put up points on the board. Obviously, they're going to run the ball. Their strength has been running the ball for the most part this year. They've struggled replacing some of the departing receivers from last year. They have quite a bit of talent at the receiver position, but it's very inexperienced, and I think that really showed it, especially in the early part of the season. And they're still trying to find those guys and those go-to guys that Austin has a lot of confidence in, and trying to know that they're going to be there wherever he throws the ball. He can count on them. Defensively, they're an improved bunch from last year, but that's last year it was one of the worst defenses Arkansas had ever put on the field, and right now they rank number 46 nationally in total defense. They've been good against the run. Good, been well. I'll say kind of iffy against the run, but last week they obviously had a good week, but that was New Mexico State. Pass defense has been kind of iffy, but there is some talent back there. But right now, their confidence level is not I wouldn't say is the greatest right now. Coming into Columbia and winning on Saturday would obviously do a lot for that.
I think if you survey anybody, Richard, who knows college football, they'll tell you that Austin Allen has a good bit of raw talent. But I would say when you survey Arkansas fans, they will tell you, or at least they think, that he's underperformed the expectations put upon him, at least from what his brother did and what they expected from him. Is that a fair criticism and evaluation of Austin Allen? How do you feel he's performed?
Somewhat of a fair assessment, but at the same time, compared to what he did last year, where the receivers were a lot more experienced and had 3-4 years under their belt versus the guys that he's throwing to right now, I think he's really trying to feel these guys out, and I think he's starting to feel comfortable with some of them. Jonathan Nance is a junior college guy that's made some big plays. Jordan Jones is a very, very fast receiver, very young, a redshirt freshman. And then you also have a redshirt sophomore in Deion Stewart. Those guys have talent, but they still haven't gotten that chemistry that you'd like to see. I think they're starting to develop it, but it's not there to where I think Austin has the amount of confidence that he had in the guys that he had last year. It's a fair assessment. At the same time, though, he's dealing with a whole new group of receivers.
You talked about the whole group, new group of receivers, and Brett Bielema, since he's been there at Arkansas, he can get cute at times with some trick plays, but it seems like a play that's really been bread and butter is if you're running the game, a running game is effective, that play action with the tight end right down the middle of the seam. Is that still the bread and butter big play for them?
Yeah, no doubt. Any kind of play action, usually when the running game is going, is pretty effective, and that's something that they definitely rely on. One thing that Coach Enos, the offensive coordinator, has done, especially since last year, and it's been effective this year, is when on obvious passing situations, when a blitz could be coming, they've been very good with screen plays, and that's something that's, like I said, been pretty effective this year. And I think that's something that you'll probably see on Saturday, especially if they get behind the chains and they feel like pressure is going to be coming.
We're talking with Richard Davenport from the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette. Couple of quick notes from the Muschamp show tonight, he has just said that Zach Bailey could play, but is doubtful at best. Helms and Malik Young are still out. Terry Gujar is out. They hope to have all those guys back for the Tennessee game. Richard, Arkansas has been very, very good in the red zone scoring touchdowns. USC's been very stingy in the red zone allowing touchdowns. I mean, they give up a lot of yards, but they're very good at keeping teams off the scoreboard. What's Arkansas doing well in the red zone that's leading to these touchdowns?
A lot of it's just running the ball effectively, and then obviously making plays in the passing game when that's necessary. But at the same time, they did struggle in the red zone against TCU. They had that game still kind of baffles me. Give TCU a lot of credit, but the offense just seemed like they never got off the bus. They had their opportunities. They had a tight end. Would have been 14-14 off. He would have kind of recognized where he was in the end zone. He kind of lost his way and caught the ball out of bounds. And it was just one of those days. But other than that, I mean, they have been effective, and it's just been a combination of being pretty balanced running and passing.
You know, Bielema hired with a lot of fanfare from Wisconsin at this point. He's under 500 overall in his career at Arkansas. People still patient with him. Are they seeing the progress in the program that they were hoping to see?
You know, I think there's quite a bit of frustration, especially on social media. I think on social media, you're always going to see frustration with any team that's, you know, after a loss. I mean, it's just magnified. But last year, how the season ended, they lost sizable leads against Missouri and Virginia Tech. You win those two games, you're 9-4 going into your fifth year. A lot of this talk and frustration would probably not be as intense as it is right now. I think he's building the program in the right way. Is it where our fans would like to see it right now? Probably not. But at the same time, the season's still young, and I think there's a lot of young talent on this team, and I think year 6 is going to be has the potential to be a very good year. But you know, obviously, we're talking about this year, and the fans are focused on that.
You could always go and bring Bobby Petrino back.
Yeah, that's one thing that Jeff Long kind of indirectly, I guess, addressed when saying Arkansas will never be a win at all cost program, and you know, that kind of got some of the fans upset at the time, and then the FBI investigation to the kind of got the fans back off of him on that. So for the most part, I mean, obviously Arkansas is going to do the right things when it comes to, you know, recruiting and not doing some of the things that some of these other schools are alleged of doing. So, yeah, that's something that was kind of unique.
You say that he's building it. Where do you think they need to make their biggest strides, and what do you think that they still have to fix?
The offensive line has been pretty effective on as far as the running game, but the pass protection has been very spotty, and that's an area where South Carolina can definitely make some hay. If Arkansas is able to protect fairly well on Saturday, they obviously have a good chance of winning. I think the offensive line probably it needs some tweaking, and another year would probably help that. I think team speed has definitely been increased over these last 2 recruiting classes, and like I said, they have some very good young talent. I think they just need to keep going in the direction they are that they've been going in the last 2 recruiting classes, and if they do that, I think good things are going to happen.
Hey, Richard, thank you so much, my friend. We appreciate you coming on with us tonight. Look forward to seeing you in Columbia this weekend. We'll see how this thing plays out.
All right, Phil. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Richard Davenport, Arkansas Democrat Gazettes, joining us here on Sports Talk. Bad news for the Gamecocks with this Arkansas team. They are very good third down conversions.
And that's something that has been a very big part of their bugaboo lately. Yeah. Getting off the field on third down.
Both of these teams defensively are not good getting teams off the field. All right, we'll be right back. More Sports Talk in a moment. I am so happy.
What's that?
Don't say it.
I'm so happy.
Don't
Tell them why I'm happy.
It's because of the Astros beating the Red Sox.
So happy.
It's like
Pound them. I want them pounded into the dirt.
Now watch the Indians tonight. See,
Well,
you can't.
It's another story.
you know, I walked
But
past.
right now, I'm happy.
I walked
okay?
past the guy on Wayne Street wearing a Indians jersey, and I gave him a little "Go Tribe."
Yeah, you would do that.
Well, you do
Loser.
realize I have a connection to the Indians. I used to work for them.
Listen, when I had some spare time last night, I did a little research on you because I don't know you very well.
This is
Since you got here.
It's very sad.
And I understand that you are related to the Queen of Australia.
No, she's a premier. She's a premier of Queensland, which is a province in Australia.
Royalty. We have royalty in our presence.
And her father used to be the Minister of Water for New South Wales as well.
Minister of Water.
Yes, water,
Mhm.
like the water, like the water people. Like
I got you.
he was in charge of all the water. That's
Listen,
a very important thing to be in charge of.
I'm going to have to put you into the football filibuster because, you know, that's where we put the highfalutin people, the governors and the generals and all this kind of stuff. And now we have somebody who is related to the Queen of Australia.
It's not the Queen of Australia.
It's easy to say. Queensland. What part of Australia is that in?
That's Southeast Australia.
You been there?
I have been to Australia. I've not been there.
Yeah.
You know, I've been to Sydney. I've been to Perth in Australia.
Does the toilet water go in the opposite direction?
Yes, it does actually.
It's kind of weird.
Absolutely does.
Because I don't really look at what
I also
direction-
lived in Singapore where it goes straight down, right on the equator.
It doesn't spin?
Just goes straight.
No, you put your hand down there, you go straight down.
It goes straight down. It's the weirdest thing in the world.
I'm sorry to know that you look, but that's good to know.
Who doesn't look? Everybody looks.
I don't look.
Everybody looks.
If you're below the equator, you want to see, you know, if it's
Every-
true.
Everybody.
Can I do recruiting?
Corn, if
Yeah,
you
go
don't
right
look,
ahead.
you are a liar.
Can I do recruiting?
Yeah, you're going
please?
down the tubes right now.
This is true. Show's been going down the tubes for a long time.
It always took us a while to get to the gutter.
No reflection on you. It was going down way before you got here.
Sure it is.
All right. Defensive end Dorian Gerald could visit South Carolina Saturday. This would be big for the Gamecocks. Of course, he's a Tennessee commitment. He's off this week with his team out in California, College of the Canyons. He's home in Florence. If he can get to Columbia, he will be there for the South Carolina-Arkansas game. This was a quick trip, kind of came out of nowhere. He decided to come home. USC's got a home game. He tells us he'll be there if he can get there. He knows South Carolina really wants him, needs him. Same thing with Tennessee. He said the Butch Jones talk and all that. He loves Butch Jones, loves the staff at Tennessee. But he says, I'm no dummy, and I'm not going to mess this up. And I understand that things can happen in college football with changes and things of that nature. And he's not going to have a blind eye to what's happening in Knoxville. Right now, scheduled for an official at Tennessee, November 24th. USC's official visit with him is the week before that. The only other certain official visit, he said, is Florida. LSU and Louisville are strong possibilities. This season, he's had 23 tackles. He leads his team with 9 tackles for loss and 5.5 sacks. Defensive lineman Rick Sandage of Concord, North Carolina, did not go to a game last weekend, not going to a game this weekend. Next visit will be somewhere October 21st. He's not sure yet. USC remains in touch, just checking in, but also Georgia, Florida, Michigan, Penn State, North Carolina, Virginia Tech. The other schools in his top 7 are also in touch. He said he has 4 of his officials set. He won't release those visits until all 5 are set. It does not look like USC will get one. He said because he's been there a lot and they're so close by. And he said that will not affect South Carolina's chances for getting him. USC commitment receiver Josh Vann of Tucker, Georgia, plans to be at Saturday's game unofficially. He said no other schools are really talking with him anymore, and he's locked in with his USC commitment. He has not yet set his official with the Gamecocks. He did take an official to Kansas State. No other schools have invited him for an official visit at this point. Defensive back C.J. Smith of West Palm Beach, Florida, has not heard back from USC since his official for the La Tech weekend, but he's looking for a call from recruiter Travaris Robinson anytime. He's going to Ole Miss October 21st and Oklahoma on the 28th. He's also hearing from Baylor. He could be ready to make his decision after the Oklahoma visit unless a visit to Baylor is set up in early November. Oklahoma has been recruiting him the hardest. Offensive lineman Dylan Wanham of Tucker, Georgia, now says Florida stands out to him the most. He told USA Today that yesterday after receiving his Under Armour All-American game jersey. Previously, he had Auburn as his favorite. Then he told a website earlier this week, USC and LSU were at the top. Defensive end Trajan Jeffcoat of Irmo has maybe the state lead in sacks with 13. He took an official visit to Missouri in September. He actually loved it.
Why wouldn't he?
He actually thought he was at Kansas, but he was at Missouri.
No, he wouldn't have. Not at that program. Not at that program.
He said he was impressed with both the football and academic sides of the school.
They still sponsor football at Kansas?
Yes.
Okay.
He's also talking with Indiana, and he's talking with them about a visit, not hearing from USC at this point. USC recently offered 2019 quarterback Ty Evans of Monument, Colorado. He's an Arkansas commitment, but the Gamecocks offer does interest him. He's been talking to Muschamp and to Roper, and he said they talked about the program and discussed how his style of play would fit in with their offense. According to stats from Max Preps, he is the leading passer in Colorado right now with 1,543 yards, 20 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions, and he's completing over 63% of his passes.
He's throwing it at high altitude.
You think that has something to do with it?
There's no air resistance.
And in basketball, Clemson offered 2019 6'6" Elias King of Snellville, Georgia. There you go with recruiting available all the time on our website, 365, 366 in leap years.
In leap years.
Yeah. And also on Twitter, use the hashtag #STRecruiting.
Had a chance to talk to Dexter Lawrence a couple days ago. Here's a little snippet of that from Tuesday. So Dexter Lawrence, defensive lineman, Clemson Tigers. What is that D-line room like?
It's funny. It's great. Just great to be in. You know, we know when to be serious and when to clown each other, and like when just just no mistakes. None of us really hard on when. Okay, let me put it like this: we critique each other, like, because we know how it's supposed to look, how it's supposed to done, and like none of the players are selfish enough or like have an attitude like they don't want to listen to anyone, because they all know that we trying to make them better and know that there shouldn't be a drop off from first to fifth.
Who is the clown in the room?
Oh God, it's a couple. There's a lot of them. I say Sterling, Clee, Christian. There's a lot of them. It's just we all just go at each other all the time. You know, just making it fun, not trying to like, because the season is long. You know, refocusing is hard. We all know that, so we just trying to make it fun every time we walk into the room.
Worst prank.
Worst prank. Oh man, I don't know. It's not too many pranks, just jokes.
Just jokes.
Yeah.
You get ripped on a little bit?
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
What was the worst thing someone ripped on?
You know, just my weight. So, you know, I got a little heavy, so they try to get me for my weight, but that was all right.
What are you at now?
I'm at 340 right now. Mm-hmm.
Is that where you want to be? You try to lose some more?
You know, the season gets tough. You know, not like conditioning as much. So that's a good weight. Last year around this time, I was 47, like real heavy. So I'm feeling good about my body.
What is the difference between training in season versus training outside of the season? Because you're really trying to build up, like you said, that conditioning in the off season.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. Off season, you know, we doing 100-yard sprints, you know, just grinding like hardcore conditioning. During season, you're more kind of, since you have games, you more kind of just do a little bit of condition, a little less conditioning, like just more focusing on the opponent.
Are you and Christian as close as you guys might see him on the field?
No, I don't like him. No, I'm kidding. But we pretty close. You know, we look out for each other all the time. It's just like a big brother, little brother type of relationship.
That's Dexter Lawrence. Basically, you can see more of that if you want at SportsTalkSC.com, but he goes into a little bit more about what Wake Forest brings to the table. But that defensive line room seems like a fun group, and the two of them are the biggest reason, in my mind, literally and figuratively, as to why Clemson is having as much success as they have this year.
Great players, great talent, and winning breeds happiness. And no question about that.
A lot more joking when you're 5-0.
Absolutely. All right. Good stuff. We'll come back. Here on Sports Talk, we've got more from Frank Martin. Also, comments from USC running back Tyson Williams about getting that running game going. That's coming up here on Sports Talk. All right, welcome back in Sports Talk, everybody. South Carolina Radio Network on this Thursday night. Good to have you with us. Phil Kornblut, Will Pelagic, and the professor, Tom Hayes. Going to get to phone calls here in just a moment. And we have got our interview with Tyson Williams coming up in a moment as well. Sports Talk made possible by your local South Carolina Electric Cooperative. Of course, the sponsor of the annual Touchstone Energy Cooperatives Bowl. Find out more about what co-ops are doing across the state. Visit ecsc.org and save that date for December 9th for the 2017 Touchstone Energy Cooperatives Bowl. And a reminder, the Shrine Bowl rosters will be announced on Sunday afternoon. So all that is coming forward here in October. To Stevie in Columbia, we go next. Hello, Stevie.
It's Speedy.
Oh, Speedy. Oh, if I had known that, I would have done something else. What's up, Cockett?
You doing all right, brother? What's up? What's going on in your world, man?
I'm just looking forward to a beat down of the Cowboys on Sunday, but that's a story for another day.
Well, that's a whole lot. I just called him about this scandal that was going on. I don't know why. That the NCAA is probably the worst scum in collegiate basketball, because if they don't come out and start Skyping these athletes, they're gonna still be running that money pipeline to Adidas and Nikes and Under Armour and all these other companies through high schools and AAAU. They've been doing that for 30 years. So it's nothing new. They just got caught. The problem you're going to have, and it's never going to stop, is that you're going to have a lot of these assistant coaches who's out there trying to recruit players to come to the school. I mean, you got it in high school right now. You look at school district 1, 2, and 3, and 4. You still have that same problem. It's all about recruiting and what can you entice young athletes to come to your school to make your brand better. But if they don't come down and start Skyping these student athletes in the collegiate level, it's just not going to stop. Phil, most of the kids that playing basketball, college basketball, is come out of very poor households. So besides giving them a 4-year scholarship and room and board and books, and the NCAA just making, and the college making billions of dollars off of them, they're going to have to do better, or else it's going to get totally out of control like it is now.
Look, I've kind of come full circle again.
Okay.
All right, okay, I've come 180, whatever
You've done a 180 on this.
Whatever the correct percentage is.
Reversed course.
I mean,
better.
However, here is where I've got to be sold on paying the college athletes, and that is, how do you do it? How do you?
It's simple.
Well, no. Where does it end? Let's say you start giving college athletes, I don't know, $10,000 a year, for a school year. You give them each $10,000. Then after 5 years, they want $15,000. Then they become unionized. Then you got to deal with taxation, and you got to deal with them being employees, and you got to deal with everything that comes. I mean, it can become. It becomes an entirely different animal, and I don't know how you run it that way.
Okay, Phil, I can tell you how you do it. This is how you do it. If you want to get a student athlete in basketball or football that actually really wants to, I'm talking about when you start recruiting top players, okay? If you want them to get on your program, give them a Skype of $20,000 a year, only if they do 3 to 4 years at the institution. That's how the deal is on the line. Okay? I'm just saying, you can hold a student athlete feet by the fire to do it. You can say, okay, it's $20,000 a year if you stay here for 3 years. Okay? Then what the school needs to do, if that athlete has the next potential to make it in the professional league, then they need to take out what you call insurance policy.
They have those nets.
If they go out there, they can take the money that they earn. If they go out there and tear up an ACL or tear up a knee, then that policy will cover the damage, so that will hurt their draft stock.
They have that. They have that now. The NCAA allows that. They have that available for your top college athletes.
but the NCAA needs to hold these kids by the hand. They need to be responsible and say, okay, this is how much Skype money we're going to give y'all if y'all committed 3 to 4 years.
Appreciate
in college ball, because they're making billions of dollars on the student athlete apparel.
Speedy, we appreciate the call.
It's Cockett.
We have to move on.
His name is Cockett.
Okay.
Yeah, he goes by Speedy. I don't know why his name is Cockett.
Regardless,
when I baptized him, I gave him the name Cockett.
Well, it's weird because Frank Martin spoke to this exact thing in the clip that we're supposed to play here with the business not being broken, and he has a very interesting way, and I very much feel like this is the way it needs to go. You need to allow the guys to make money off their likeness and do it independently.
There you go.
Well, let me say this. Breaking news. Can I give you some breaking news?
Yeah.
The money flow to college is going to end, maybe sooner than later, okay? They're going to find themselves like NASCAR, okay? They're going to find themselves begging for money at some point in time in the not too distant future, because I want to keep this clean. Mama, ESPN, Big Mama, who has been feeding college athletics for these past 35 years, has got big problems. I think we all know that, okay? Yeah. I'm not shedding anything here that we don't already know. They got big problems. When their money dries up, by and large, the money to these colleges will dry up. And so now, all of a sudden, instead of going to SEC spring meetings and ACC spring meetings and having the commissioner hand each athletic director a check for $25, $30, $35 million, not to mention all the other money coming in from ESPN sources, it's gone, or it's cut in half, or it's cut by a large percentage. So if you do what you're talking about here, and you're on the hook now to the athletes, and you have typically in a major college athletic program, you've got about 365 scholarship athletes when you add them all up. Now, if you're on the track team and you're a track All-American and you're doing great things in track, and you're seeing a guy in football getting paid $10,000 a year or whatever, hey, what about me? Now you're talking lawsuits.
This is not about fair. No one said life is fair, Corn. No. This is about the ability for these guys to make money off of their name and likeness when they're not being paid anything more than a scholarship. It doesn't necessarily have to come from the university. Right. No one's ever saying it has to come from the university.
So the third the third string tailback who's on scholarship, but he's not.
But that's the way American capitalism works.
Calm down. The third string tailback who is from a poor family. This is what Cockett's talking about. He's from a poor family. He can't even bring his parents into town to watch a game because he can't afford it.
Right.
But he's on scholarship because you recruited him and you brought him into college, and he's on scholarship, but he's not a big-time player.
Understand it.
He can't make any money off his likeness. Why should he not benefit?
Too bad. Listen, no one said this was supposed to be fair, Corn.
But that's not answering the question.
You want to know how to stop the problem with all the money.
That's not answering. So you're saying a select few will make the money and the great majority will not. That does not solve the problem that Cockett was talking about.
The way this country works, Corn.
Okay, that's
select
fine.
Few make the money.
So what are you going to do when they go on strike and they say, I'm not playing if I'm not getting some money too?
You get a guy that's poor and want to play third string, and he sits there then. He takes his seat.
I don't think it's a solvable problem. I don't think it's a solvable issue. I don't think there's a good plan out there.
No, it really is not.
To satisfy the money crave and everything else that you would have. And let me ask you this. You talk about the likeness. Okay, so you're saying they get a cut of people wearing the jerseys and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
What about when the school takes your picture? Let's say you're Jake Bentley, and the school and ESPN, whatever, they use your picture to promote a game coming up.
They should get a cut of that.
They should get a cut of that, huh?
Yeah,
they should get a cut of that too,
ding,
huh?
ding,
Okay,
ding.
all right. I'm just wondering.
There should not be a prohibition on the ability.
So auto dealer down the street calls
employers.
me. Can you show up Saturday during the off season and be there to sell cars?
Absolutely.
Okay, we're back. Sports Talk on a Thursday night, South Carolina Radio Network. Want to give you a quick high school report brought to you by Farm Bureau Insurance. With new auto insurance rates from Farm Bureau, you could be saving a heck of a lot of money. Even if you received a quote before, rates are now more competitive than ever. So get a no-obligation quote today at favrates.com. Let's get a look at the players of the week from this past week of high school football, courtesy of the High School Sports Report. Your 5A player of the week is Dre Yarbrough of Greenwood, a quarterback, rushed for 206 yards, 2 touchdowns, had 170 yards passing and a touchdown. In 4A, player of the week is Jordan Morgan, East Side, and he had 464 yards passing and 3 touchdowns. East Side, hello, is 6-0. 3A player of the week is Quincy Mitchell of Hanahan, 253 yards for the running back. He scored 5 touchdowns in an upset of previously unbeaten Manning. AA player of the week, Roscoe Cox Christchurch, rushed for 229 yards and 3 touchdowns. Excuse me. 1A player of the week is Tyron Parker, Williston Elko, and he had 95 yards passing, 74 yards rushing, and he scored 2 touchdowns. And Skeeza player of the week is Michael Dukes of First Baptist, 261 yards rushing and 2 touchdowns in a victory.
South Carolina head basketball coach Frank Martin, in a clip that I referenced earlier, has this potential solution for how to fix college athletics.
Our business is not messed up. I guess Coach K said something the other day that made a lot of sense. By the way, Cal, who gets credit for being the smartest guy in our business as far as being proactive, he stole what he reported from me. I'm the person that's the advocate, and I've been saying it for a long time, that we should allow these kids to receive compensation based on their likeness, on uniforms, on autographs, and as universities, we should control that. And what I have said is that part of our process in educating successful athletes that are going to make millions playing professionally is teach them how to be philanthropic. So we should take, like, for example, jerseys are being sold. And by the way, I always use offensive tackles because that's what I used to play. No one cares about the offensive tackle. So if no one wants to buy my jersey, that's my problem. That's not the university's problem. But if everyone wants to buy J.D. Clowney's jersey or Sindarius's jersey, more power to them. We'll create a fund. 30% of those the profits, 30% goes into a fund for the young man. 30% goes into the university, because last time I checked, fans have been coming to watch basketball here before Sindarius wore the uniform, and they'll keep watching it after he left, because the name on the front is very important to our fan base. So 30% goes to university, and obviously somebody makes it. 30% goes to that company. That leaves 10%. Tell the young man, pick a charity of your liking, and while you're in town, that 10% will go to that charity. So we're teaching them how to be philanthropic. And then the day they sign a professional contract or they get a degree without being convicted of a felony, they start life with a lot of money in their pocket. If they're J.D. Clowney. If they're me, they start life with debt. That's all right. That's the way most people start. But that way you're not creating preferential treatment for anybody. So Cal took that from me, but then he expounded on some things. And one of the things that we have done a real bad job of, we've created the situation that we're living right now, is we've separated our game from developing coaches. So we, like I grew up going to 5-star. I started as this 19-year-old just guy, had no idea how to coach. And I go work 5-star. And at 10 o'clock at night, I'm seeing Rick Pitino, Pete Gillen, Hubie Brown, Chuck Daly running stations, teaching kids how to play at 10 o'clock at night, holding no punches, and drilling kids on how to do things the right way. That's how I grew up. So I learned how to coach, which I think is what's allowed me to find success in this business. That's changed. We no longer teach coaches how to coach. We teach coaches how to get players. And I think that's what's gotten everyone in a little bit of a pickle here.
All right, Frank Martin from his presser earlier today, I'll just say that you're still going to have problems if you do that because of the people who don't get any money. who are players, but they're not your high profile guys. I hear what he's saying. Pay those who get all the attention, but you're going to have a problem with that right tackle he talked about, who nobody is buying his jersey because he's just simply a right tackle, but he's going to want his take. This is, it's like in the NFL. You pay the running backs, they get paid, or quarterbacks, an exorbitant amount of money, but the right tackle gets paid as well, and the left tackle, because they're professional. So you're going to tell college players, okay, you're blocking for Mr. Heisman Trophy candidate back here, and he's getting an extra $50,000, $60,000, let's just say a semester, because his jersey's the hottest thing in college football, but you get nothing.
But here's the issue.
How are you going to deal with that player?
Here's the issue.
How are you going to deal with that player?
No,
what are you going to tell that player? How are you going to fix that player?
You're missing the point.
Sit what?
You're missing the
because
point.
The next guy's going to come in and play.
No, you're missing the point.
Well, it'll be the same situation for the next guy.
There's no reason to say that you can't reward entrepreneurship or an ability for that right tackle to go out and try and earn some money off his likeness.
He's got to go to school. He's got to go to practice.
If you want to get money, there's ways to get it.
How's he going to do it? How's a right tackle? Let's take Zach Bailey.
Like Pro said earlier.
How is Zach Bailey going to go out and market himself to get money?
There are ways you can market yourself. There's plenty of ways you can market yourself.
You don't tell me an alumnus that owns a business, an auto dealership, come on down Saturday.
The rules
starting
don't allow
right
that.
tackle.
You can't do that.
But we're talking about you change the rules.
If you change the rules to allow them to make the money off their likeness, you can allow for entrepreneurship.
So now Mr. Big Ford dealership can have the right tackle come down and say, hey, we'll pay you 10, 15 grand to come down here and sign autographs.
Absolutely.
Instead of doing it,
ain't going to happen. Ain't going to happen. Ain't going to happen. Ain't going to happen. I'm telling you, it's going to be ripe with mistrust, jealousy.
It already is.
Got to say, how is that different than it is now?
Because they're all even. They're all getting the same thing. They're all getting the same thing.
No, they're not. They're all getting it under the table.
No. They all get the same stipend from the NCAA. Every scholarship football player gets the same stipend, whether you are
and that's the
time
problem.
out. They all get the same stipend from the NCAA if you're a scholarship player. They get the same amount every month. Now, if somebody's getting something under the table, then first of all, that's cheating, and you run the risk of being ineligible at this current time under the current rules. You want to take that and put it above the table and eliminate those stipends and make it a Wild West where you say everybody on their own, go out and get what you can. I think you're asking for chaos.
I think there already is chaos.
Mm-hmm.
No, I think you're asking for real chaos. I mean, you might think there's chaos now. You ain't seen chaos till you see that chaos.
I'm telling you, you want to know how you stop it? You make it allowed. You deregulate it. You deregulate the ability.
I mean, even in the NFL, they don't. I mean, they have contracts and they pay you what you've negotiated for your contract, but they don't leave anybody out. And everybody, even though the right tackle, he understands that's what right tackles are going to make compared to a quarterback. You're talking about a guy working for nothing. Okay, maybe he doesn't have the ability to market himself. Maybe nobody wants to pay a right tackle to come sign autographs, but everybody wants the quarterback. How's that guy going to feel?
There's an applicable example that has taken place in our legal system that I don't have nearly enough time to get into right now. But there are ways when you deregulate certain things, you are able to pacify the ability to have harm on those things. And again, it's way too long to get into right now, but I can explain it to you in tomorrow's show if you would like me to. That's a tease for you.
I can't wait. It's only 22 hours from now.
22 hours from now.
I'll have a hard time sleeping waiting for that.
Let me tell you this, and I put on my robes for a minute. Here's where the problem comes in. People misstate when they say money is the root of all evil. It's not. It's the love of money that's the root of all evil. That's going to be the poison. Well, you're poison.
By the way, speaking of money,
you're poison.
Monty Lee got a contract extension today at Clemson. So now he will earn at least $2.85 million over the next 6 years. Got a 1-year extension from the Clemson board today. Speaking of loving some money. All right, that'll do it. We'll see you tomorrow night here on Sports Talk.